Hello, beautiful, brilliant souls. I am so excited to be back connecting with you and hope that this episode serves and supports you in your journey of living in flow and on fire, especially in creating the things that you are dreaming of creating and making your life more good and beautiful and having the impact that you're trying to make or any other aspiration that you're after. This is the show that talks about the tips and tricks and skills, as well as the mindset and just pure inspiration and insights on what it actually requires to live in alignment with what our heart and soul is calling us to do. And I have been studying this and working with this for so many years, especially for the 16 years of growing my own business and working with so many business owners and creators who they had a big business dream and aspiration, and they had something epic that they wanted to create and bring into the world, but they would inevitably hit certain hangups. And I've even had clients who have paid thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars to build a beautiful, aligned, gorgeous, professional brand and website with my company in the past when I was offering this with my business, and never launched their website. Like, it was literally just ready to publish and they would never hit publish. And so I'm really fascinated by this phenomena that keeps us living small or keeps us kind of, justifying or making excuses or postponing even living and doing the thing that we've been talking about or dreaming about for such a long time. And I especially find with a lot of the women that I connect with and that are in my world, this seems to be just rampant in women, especially, where we get a big, beautiful dream and vision, and then we go to try to bring it into the world, and it takes maybe years or decades or just absurd amounts of time. And so I'm just very, very interested in what is that, right? And how do we move past that? And a big part of what we talk about here on the podcast is those aspects that will help us to get in those zones where it just flows. And when we're on fire, we've got the passion and the genius and the spark and the insight, and it can just come really naturally. However, there's roadblocks that we've got to get through. And so a really important one that I've been diving in deep with lately, ever since I heard about it, I have been mulling over and just thinking, gosh, this is such a great one that I really want to make sure and share it with this audience. So I originally heard this idea from a artist whose name is Andy J. Pizza. Yes, pizza like the food. If you haven't heard of him, he's amazing. And he has an incredible podcast called Creative Pep Talk. And it's just exactly what it says. If you need a pep talk to help you to be more creative, that's the episodes or the show for you. He does specifically gear a lot of his content towards artists or musicians and that type of artistic creation. But I still think there's a ton of value there. If you just need a good dose of inspiration, it's a great podcast. I highly recommend it. One of the concepts that he talks about quite a bit in his podcast that I was even thinking, I don't know that there's one specific episode I could send you to listen about it. It's filtered through all of it. And I don't think this concept is even unique to him, but he shares the idea that when you get into wanting to create, we'll use art, for example, but it's anything. When you want to start creating something, you do so largely because you're motivated by your taste. So in an art sense, this is easy to see, right? Like, you have really great taste in art, really great taste in maybe colors, great taste in what goes together well, or great taste in like how to communicate something visually. And so that's what gets you started, is you think, oh, I can see exactly what needs to happen. I'm going to hop in and then I'm going to make amazing art and it's going to be incredible. But then what he talks about is that there is this gap between your level of taste and your actual skills. And so the big thing that makes it so a lot of artists and creators of every kind end up quitting and abandoning ship is that it takes time to develop those skills and to bring up your skills to the level of your taste. So fascinating, right? So especially like on an artistic level, I've been really experiencing this lately as I've been working to change my career path over to being a full-time artist and an illustrator. This has been a major issue in that I show up to the blank page and there is no way that what I'm putting down today on that paper matches the level of taste and the vision that's in my head. And it has been incredibly difficult and frustrating as a result. And if I hadn't heard this concept, I probably would have quit long ago. And so the reason why I wanted to bring it to this audience is that it is a true concept, regardless of what you are trying to create and or get better at, that your level of taste, you seeing the gap essentially is like always going to be there. You're always going to see a gap, and then you working and putting in the hours and the time to then bring your skills up to where they would need to be to fill that gap is where the real work is and where the practice of doing what you want is. And a good place where being in the practice of living in flow and on fire can really support you, because from an artistic sense, for example, that was one of the biggest shockers, is that I really enjoyed art. As soon as I decided I want to get better in this way and I want to go to this, level, I want to be able to do this thing with it, art stopped being fun for a while. And there are still moments where it's like just even getting into sitting down to paint or getting to my easel to draw and create something. There is so much resistance because it doesn't feel as easy and fun as some other things. I just got back from, and I'll have to talk about this probably on another episode, but from this incredible art retreat in France with 2 professional illustrators and artists leading the retreat. And I was shocked when one of them said, everything is always easier to do than art. Meaning like that thing that you're really excited. I mean, this is her full-time thing. She loves art. She's loved it for years. She's created amazing things with it. But she was even also recognizing that absolutely everything in your life will always be easier than just sitting down and doing the thing. So it's really been fascinating. I've been looking at this with, just some of the women in my world who are trying to create businesses and get their business ideas off the ground and actually launched. They've been talking about these dreams forever. And I've watched so many of them really holding back, feeling like they just need more. They just got to get more stuff together. They just need more education. They just need to gather a few more certifications. They need to go down a few more rabbit holes. And I just really wonder how much of this is trying to make it so their skill level is at the level of their taste. For example, in these instances, a lot of these women are wanting to be coaches, whether that's in the health space or in like a life coach kind of a sense. But they have incredible, amazing gifts. They're in like women that inspire me so much, and they're still holding themselves back from actually offering what they do naturally, what they do for friends and family and for random strangers. Like they're still holding back on offering that to the public and really taking it seriously and doing it as a business. And so what I've noticed in my own world is that this dilemma of taste versus skill is always going to exist to some degree. And in fact, one of the concepts I heard a while ago that I really love is that the more you know about something, the more aware you are of how much more there is to know. So also, recognizing that the more that you gather knowledge, the more that you are out there, you're never necessarily going to not feel a gap and suddenly wake up one day and be like, this is the moment. Oh my gosh, I have everything I need. I'm perfectly ready. Like there is going to be no roadblocks. It's going to be amazing. Today's the time to do it, right? The day is never going to come, sadly, in some ways. But I think also fantastic. Like what a relief that it never comes, because I do think that one of the ways that we increase our skills in any area that we are trying to get better at is just showing up for it and continuing to be in the practice of what we're trying to do with that level of taste and perspective. I think parenting is a great example if you're a parent. I know I'm getting towards the end of my kids all being at home. If you're just joining the show and you haven't heard before, I have 5 children and they're from the ages of 17 to 12. And so we're right on the cusp of a lot of them starting to graduate over the next couple of years out of high school and move out. And you know, in theory, a lot could happen, but that's what it's looking like. And I have to tell you, one of the things I really had to mourn over the past couple years was this feeling that, wait a minute, I was going to figure out how to be this incredible parent and I'm running out of time. I don't have any more years to do it. Like, it was almost like I had been aggressively trying to amp up my skills, read all the books, learn all the lessons to try to be this super parent. And now I'm out of time. And I think that life is like that. Like, we need to learn and do as much as we can and really gain a lot from what we can do with education, but we also just get to jump in there. Like, it's fascinating that babies come to us and we're supposed to figure it out from scratch, like, roughly. I mean, society was not always built this way, where we were all parenting on our own. Usually in a lot of societies, you had elders and others who had done it before who were supporting you. And so that is something very different in our generation than prior generations, or our time in history, right? But even that being said, even with having a lot of support, every kid is different, every scenario is different. So there's always a skill gap there as well. And so I think that, just something that can be really important to recognize is 2 aspects of this coin. And by the way, all of this I'm just throwing out as possibilities, just interesting things for you to think about. If any of this is holding you back or you're resonating with any of this, then awesome. If you're not, no worries at all. This is definitely what I found through my experience. It probably doesn't work for most people, but in my world, I've seen that I have to look at 2 sides of this coin. So first of all, I have to recognize and be humble about that gap. And when I am humble about that gap and I recognize, hey, my level of what I want this to be matters, and I will continue to invest in myself and my skills and in whatever I'm doing to improve my skill level as close as I can get it to that level of taste. And as far as an artistic sense, there are a lot of artists that I have heard from lately who absolutely feel like they have created that. Their skill level is at the level of their taste. And now they have different problems like inspiration and what to do and what to create. When we're in the taste versus skill gap, where we're still trying to develop our skills, though, I think that's where we have almost too much inspiration sometimes. We have so many ideas and so many possibilities that can get really numbing and overwhelming, or like overwhelming, and then we want to numb, I should say. And so I think that, like, there's this aspect of when we're humble about it and we recognize, hey, I wouldn't expect a brain surgeon to just walk out of high school, decide he wants to be a brain surgeon, and just like show us he has the talent for it, right? I would expect him to put in years of education, learning about it. I would expect him to put in hours, years of hours in practice and in getting his skill level to the point that it would need to be for him to do that competently. And then I personally would be looking for a brain surgeon who hopefully also had his skill level to the level of his taste, meaning that he could recognize what a really great job of doing that surgery would look like and what the optimal situation would be, and that he would be using his skills to support that level of taste per se, right? And so I think a big area where I see so many big dreamers and young entrepreneurs, whether they're young biologically or not, get stuck is in believing you should have it all figured out already, and kind of thinking, well, if this is going to work, it's going to work because I have the talent or not, or because it's meant to be or not, right? And I think that gets us stuck versus recognizing that there's an investment to put in order to get the output that you are hoping for out of anything in life. I see this really commonly at my kids' volleyball games lately. I have 4 daughters. And of those four daughters, we are like looking at 100% of them love volleyball. It is insane. I never knew I would be a volleyball mom. I never did. I would get dizzy on the volleyball court of like looking around, wondering what to hit and like missing stuff all the time and just being happy if the ball made contact with any part of my body. But I've got these 4 athletes who genuinely love the sport, and they have shown up for it for years, and they've done not just like the school teams, they've also done out of school clubs and any opportunity they can get to play volleyball, including on family vacations and family reunions. They're going to be there. And so it's fascinating being in the stands and hearing the comments of the other adults about what's going on the court. And it just cracks me up because I feel like those in the stands have a high level of taste. They know what a good serve looks like. They know you're supposed to get the serve over the net to make a point, right? Or to like not lose a point immediately. They know like what a good hit is and what part of the arm you're needing to hit it with in order to have it be a good hit, right? Like everybody in the stands has a pretty great idea, honestly, of what it looks like to do it well. But what it looks like to do it well, and we could say that was their level of taste, right? Where they're like, oh, I know exactly what a great athlete looks like. But then if we were to reverse engineer this and put everybody on the stands on the court and make them do those things that they are yelling down at the kids to do, like how many of them could do them? I would bet 0.1%, right? Because I typically experience that the people who actually know how to play the sport and have been on the court, have spent years on the court, they're usually pretty quiet in the stands. They are not the ones getting riled up about the way it should be done or could be done. And I would bet largely because they remember just how difficult it is to have that type of hand-body-eye connection, that you are able to make those moves in those clutch moments every single time. And they know that it's not even possible to play it perfectly every single time, right? And so I think that some of this level of like, when you understand, you know, I have this vision of what I'm trying to create. My taste is at this level in this type of thing that I'm trying to create. And then you see like it's probably really good because you've been in the stands for a long time and you've been watching others doing it, and you've acquired your level of taste because of so much education you've gotten or examples you've gotten, what it looks like to do it well and what it looks like to do it wrong. But you don't have as much experience on the court, right? And that's okay. And just because you step onto the court and you know what it should look like, but you can't get your body to do that, the, metaphorical court here, like just because you step onto that court, it doesn't look like exactly what you envisioned in your mind. And what it should look like, that doesn't mean that you're destined to fail. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. It doesn't mean even that your skill level can't improve to the level of your taste, right? I think that it's so inspiring. Often we hear about, some of the most impressive sportsmen of all time. Like we think of Michael Jordan, for example. One of my favorite things about Michael Jordan's story is the aspect of his teammates even recognizing he was always the first one on the court and the last to leave in practices, not just in games when everybody's coming and shouting his name and wearing his jersey, right? It was in practices. And practicing our skills is the unsexy part. It's the part where, nobody's holding you to it except for yourself, right? If I skip out on completing an art assignment today, like no one will know but me and my art school after a time, but like I could get away with it. I could get away with doing a crappy job in that art lesson if I just wasn't feeling it, or I just had a lot going on, right? Like I can make so many excuses. I could tell my art school, I could say, oh man, life just threw me some curveballs. My kids have been super busy this week. I've been sick this week, and or whatever it might be, right? And that's what it would be. It would just be excuses. Like at the end of the day, my skills aren't improving because I'm not showing up. It doesn't matter what's happening in my life as much like as if I want to improve, I've got to keep showing up. And I think any, if not most skills, I mean, there's pretty few skills, especially that you can get paid well for, that you can just pick up immediately. Like a lot of these take years of investment and time. And I see even like, especially when I was a CMO and, working with a lot of marketers, I saw a lot of marketing talent come right out of school. And actually, even prior to that, I've been hiring marketers and graphic designers and, talent like that for the past, much of the past 16 years. And I see so many of those kids coming out of college and they think they've just got it nailed. They know all the right things to do. But then when they're in actual scenarios, they panic or they get overwhelmed or they just can't do it. And life comes up and they can't keep showing up for their job regularly. Right. But then you see the ones that persevere and they recognize, okay, just like I put in a lot of time with getting my brain to recognize what was good and what was not, and like what I want this to be, like I've got to put in maybe even an equal or greater amount of time into investing in building the skills in myself, right? And those that did like dynamically outperformed their peers. It was not even a competition. And a huge aspect of that, I think, is being able to stay in that beginner mindset, being able to, recognize I'm going to be bad at something for a minute, but I see that bigger vision and I'm just going to keep showing up to it. And I might be bad at it for years, right? In art, this has looked like I might make bad art for years. I might waste, quote unquote, art supplies for years. And even in the moment, there were so many moments where it just felt paralyzing in the first couple of years as I was getting, really diving into art in all of my spare time while working my other jobs, right? And building my business. Like in those moments, it felt like a waste of time, even because I wasn't able to create at the level that my taste was at. And so there was this constant criticism and resistance to actually putting in the work to improve my skill set. So deep breath. If this is relating to you and resonates with you, first of all, I'm excited because I think when we recognize this in ourselves, it helps us to show up for the practice in a way that we just wouldn't before. We're not, and it also helps us get rid of that, like judgment day kind of feeling with each time we're trying to do it. I remember when I first started, mentoring people with their brand and marketing, I like had this judge in the back of my mind that was like, man, if this client doesn't have an incredible experience, that is evidence that I will never be good at this and that I'll never be able to do it. Right. And then I have memories of like even learning, gosh, very, very beginning of my career, maybe even like longer than 16 years ago, going to like sales, how to sell kinds of trainings and being just amazed. Like my jaw was on the floor of, wow, like how do they do this? They're like Jedi mind readers, how they just know exactly what to say and to help people sell. And then of course, I become a professional marketer and it's like very easy for me to know like sales psychology and how to help people meet their needs. And now I see more on the opposite side of that, of how like dangerous that can be when wielded for things that people just don't need, right? And are pressuring, so, or manipulative. That's another topic for another day. But just meaning that, I think we can all look back on the things that we maybe never thought we could do. And over time, we totally did it. And it was amazing. And we all, or lots of us listening, probably the majority, would have the experience of, going from not being able to do anything but kick our legs in the air, when we were babies, right? And then somehow over time and over falling over and over again, we all somehow figured out to walk, and lots of us run and can, dance and do lots of things. Like but it took time. We didn't start with the idea as a baby of, I'm going to walk tomorrow and it's going to be amazing. And then we fall down and then we give up, right? And so I think there's this level of maturity, especially as adults, that is hard to face being bad at something or failing at something. And we're so quick to judge ourselves and to just pass that judgment. I failed. I'm a failure at this. When in reality, like recognizing, hey, I have a vision, my taste is at a certain level, and I have a skill gap. And the more I invest in closing that skill gap, the better I'm going to get. I think it just is such a healthy perspective. I think the other thing that can kind of happen that is a sneaky, kind of insidious thing happening in our society right now, that I'll even just taking a deep breath to speak to it, because I think it's maybe not a popular opinion. But I do think that a lot of people who have great stuff to offer, they have a great vision, are coming into the world of, business mentors and even law of attraction kind of mentality and positivity mentality. And there's a lot of pressure for us to maybe like kind of put a nice bit of frosting over our skill level shit cupcake, where it's like, we are not great at this, but let's make ourselves feel like we're amazing at it. And let's go ahead and push it out before it's ready. Like, I think there's some of that happening. So I think we need to watch that end of the spectrum as well, so that we're making sure to say, like for example, in my art, I saw a very clear moment over the past couple months where I could say, this is good enough with the skill level that I want to acquire. And now I'm going to try to tell the stories and bring the vision to life that I have at this level of skill. And I could have done that, but my vision still was at this other direction. And so I'm excited to pursue that continual improvement of my skill level to bring it more up to where my taste is, which is a little bit more realistic than where my skill level has been. And so, I think that the ways that this happens in business is a lot of life coaches. Like the worst example that I've ever seen of this, that will just make your toes curl too, probably, is I was at this really hyped up, exciting business conference where all sorts of female entrepreneurs were coming to learn about how to get their businesses off the ground. The mentor was up on the stage and she was just rah-rahing everybody about how they can buy designer purses just like her once their businesses are off the ground, and their lives will be perfect and amazing just like hers. I mean, it was just riddled with issues, this whole bit of content. But then at the end, she was selling, I think it was a $40,000 program to learn how to do it just like her and to build your own business. And there was a girl who was, in a lot of ways homeless, did not have like her own space, was living on the generosity of others at that time, like sleeping on somebody's couch. She had a bunch of health problems that she was struggling with. And this head coach person leading the event that was selling this massive program was saying, well, to pay for my program, why don't you become a law of attraction coach and specialist and expert? So it's like this idea of like, she could walk out of there and then just go coach people, which tragically does happen. It is rampant in the especially female business mentoring and coaching space. It is a big reason why I've just kind of lost my stomach for a lot of that, what happens in there, because a lot of what is being taught is, this worked for me, and so it will work for everyone, which is not necessarily true. And a lot of these people don't have the skill levels to be recommending and mentoring and teaching people at the investment levels that they are asking for. And in encouraging somebody to just like, hey, yeah, you're good, like just go coach people on like law of attraction or something, like or I think it was specifically manifestation, right? Which is an aspect of law of attraction. But with that level, it was just like a little concerning of the, who's going to come to her. And she's maybe built this fancy brand around herself being a manifestation coach and expert, but she's just doing it to pay for this other program. And her life is kind of not maybe what the people investing in her would be hoping that somebody mentoring them in those ways would have created with their lives. So, I mean, it's a hot mess. I can hear like but what if and what if parts of that. But I think just the takeaway is that I'm hoping to get across is just recognizing that, improving our skills isn't always fun. It doesn't always feel good. And that it's messy. It's not the polished part. The polished part comes after we've put in the work and we've put in the time to invest in our skills. And so what I wish a lot of female entrepreneurs would do instead, including these gorgeous, coaches that I'm just eager to see them launch their businesses finally after years and years, that I was mentioning earlier, what I wish they would do is recognize that, they may be at the level where they have got to put more and more education, more and more like developing their taste in one way aside for a bit and just really invest in developing their skills. And one of the best ways to do that for some types of businesses and scenarios is actually getting your hands dirty, like getting in there and doing stuff. And so, a really inspiring coach that I was just talking to, she was talking about or she's just launching her business. She was telling me how she is so excited to go offer her, basically coaching for free for a season. Like she's got to put in a certain amount of hours with the life coaching program that she's a part of to go in and like, now she's excited to go share that with lots of people, that she's got all these basically free hours that people could use with her for her to develop her skill set, and how she's been kind of holding back on letting everybody know, but then was realizing, oh, it's like, that feels exciting actually to get in there. And I will say with my own business, the ways that I learned fastest about marketing was, yes, watching and getting some education, but then application, like actually developing my skills was where I was able to learn the fastest. Same with art. I have been developing my taste for art for, we could say, 40 years, right? Like I cannot hop on Pinterest without pinning like so much art that I love. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope I could make art like this someday. Right. Like I love museums. I love art, even on like packaging. Like I'm just a huge fan of art, have been a graphic designer for years as well. And creative director in a lot of capacities. And even a photographer. Like I've developed a ton of skills for or a ton of data and a very refined palette for what visually looks really good or tells a certain story and gets a message across. But my skill gap is not there. And so what's been so cool to see is that, yes, there's a lot of resistance that shows up before I get into, working on a school assignment or putting in the time with a painting. But inevitably, it's in being in the painting and working through it that I learned dynamically more about how to create a great painting than I've ever learned in following step-by-step tutorials and even taking painting classes for years and years. I've been taking painting classes and doing step-by-step tutorials. And I love the model that my art school that I'm in right now is using, where they give you some instruction, but then they want you to go take your own source material and create it like based off of what you're learning. It's accessing other parts of my brain that have definitely been weak. And I see a lot of people looking for that kind of same situation, like what I'm expressing I've done with art in their marketing, where they're like, no, just like give me the 10 tips. I'll go apply those and then I'll be cranky when they don't work. Instead of like, well, try those tips and try what else you want to try and like get your feet really dirty, your feet wet and your hands dirty. Let's get our analogies straight. But like getting in there and actually trying stuff and being messy with it and wondering what will work is dynamically usually what's going to make the difference and what's going to make it you agile enough to be able to figure things out fast. Most of the knowledge about marketing in particular Most of that knowledge is out of date that's being shared online. It's out of date because the people who are sharing it got the results that they're telling you about, either a couple months ago at best. That would be less out of date, but usually they got the results 6 to 12 months ago. And the internets and the internets, as if there were multiple, please let there not be multiple. The internet and the algorithms are moving so quickly that a lot of those things are just rapidly growing out of date. And so that doesn't, like, this is where, my argument would be less concerned with like somebody telling you step by step how to do something now, or like, here's how you go viral, or here's how you launch your business. Be more concerned about what are the basic principles, what are the fundamental principles of starting a business or going viral, or good marketing practices, or just building community. And how do I apply that to my scenario? How, like, be more concerned about understanding those core principles than following those tips and tricks. And especially, please don't feel like you've got to follow all the crazy trends in order to not miss the boat. Because here, to wrap this episode up, I want to just emphasize it is always, always quality over quantity that makes the biggest difference and growth and the biggest impact in whatever we're trying to create and whatever we're trying to bring into the world. And so, being a quality, being able to offer quality consistently, right, is maybe a better way to say that. But throwing out less high quality stuff more frequently doesn't get you where you want to be. So for example, with the business and marketing aspect, right? If you're just listening to all the experts and they're saying you've got to be posting 3 times a day, and it's got to be Monday through Friday at these specific times every week, and you need to be on this platform, and oh my gosh, this other platform is the latest rage and everyone is there. If you're not there, you're missing out, right? If you're listening to all of that and trying to keep up on that, it can feel like quantity is more important than quality, but it is just not. And I have seen some really impressive data on this as well, from just like a marketing mindset. I wish I actually had a reference of this data so I could link it to you, but you can go for my, what I'm saying, and then watch for this type of evidence and data as well in your world. But just that talks about, there was one example that was given in a major marketing conference I attended that they had studied. And they were talking about how this one guy, he would post, I think it was one LinkedIn post every month. One, that was it. And he grew his following like crazy. It was insane. Like, it shouldn't have been possible on that platform. And given the level that he was engaging with it, like, he didn't hang out in the comments all the time. He wasn't constantly on LinkedIn doing other stuff, right? But he grew this massive following. And what they could point it to was that because he spent a month working on whatever he was going to post, it was so high quality and so well done that it attracted people to it, and they were excited for that one post. They look forward to it. It felt like it was worth more because he had invested more into it, right? And so, here again, don't let that hold you back from going in and like posting and practicing and like building up your skills, because I bet before then he probably posted a lot and he started to see some trends about what his audience really resonated with. And that's where he decided to really dig in and invest a lot of time and energy into that specific angle or aspect of what he was talking about. But oftentimes we just can't figure out a lot of this stuff in our head. We can't create a perfect path for ourselves in our heads. And so the more that we stay out of really getting our hands dirty and our feet wet, like, and building those skills, the longer it just prolongs us being able to actually match our skill level with our level of taste of what our vision is for what we're trying to create. And so just, look at that in your own world and recognize, have I put in enough time with education? Is it now time to really dig in and build the skills? And do I best build those skills through practice? Do I best build them through, offering what I'm trying to do for free for a season? In art, they have this concept of 100 paintings. If you just get through 100 paintings, on the other side of 100 paintings, you will find your style. You'll find your level of, taste that you've been after that whole time. I know in a lot of like the talent kinds of theories, there's like the 10,000 hours kind of concept, right? Like some of this is just about putting in the time. And there is a line where education just cannot, it's not a replacement for putting in the time with your skills. And so if you're trying to build a business, or you're just trying to be a good parent, whatever it is that's inspiring you, or whatever you're trying to create, if you're trying to be a great athlete, like really honor and give yourself a lot of grace if it's really that season where it's time to build the skills. And however you can build up encouragement and support in your life, even if it's personal and you've just got encouraging statements on your wall that you see all the time, and that are inspiring you, or you're setting little goals for yourself, like whatever you can do to really help keep yourself engaging with building your skill set, it will pay off dynamically. And so I'm excited for you guys to explore that, feel into it. I'd love to hear what you think. Definitely let me know how this episode hit you. I would love to hear from you and if this resonated or not. And especially always love hearing back on the weekly emails of everybody that hits reply and sends me a message that you've listened to the episode. I love hearing what you have to say and how this has hit you. If you're not yet on that email list, definitely head to quincurtis.com, where you can hop on that email list and get those emails. They are jam-packed with just pure inspiration, cheering you on. If you need that little, insight or nudge to go do the thing and to stay in flow and on fire and whatever you're trying to create, that's a great resource for you that I'm so happy to offer completely free, and would just love to be in your world and in your community. And then I am also offering a new, really exciting support tool, which is a Patreon subscription. So if you're familiar with Patreon or not familiar with Patreon, it's basically I'm offering through Patreon as the vehicle, but I'm offering a support group for anybody who's trying to build something, create something, whether that be a business or your next thing in life, writing that book, doing that thing. If you're looking for a group and some support to cheer you on and help you stay inspired and engaged in what you're doing, maybe help you see you through that skill gap, this Patreon group can be a really fabulous resource to you. It's a beautiful community that is growing all the time, and is also, I'm offering free, or not free, they're included in Patreon, but live monthly coaching calls where it's a group coaching situation, and you can come and ask any questions, any places where you're getting stuck in what you're trying to create. And I'm there to help and support you in moving through that. I've worked and helped a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of creators and just damn good people to move through their stuff that's holding them back and actually do the thing that they're wanting to do, as well as absolutely getting out of my own way in my own world. And so I'd love to support you in that area. If that's something that inspires you, you can also head to quincurtis.com or check out the show notes here where you can sign up. It's like ridiculously affordable. Like I want it to be this no-brainer investment every month, because my vision is to have this massive, beautiful, supportive community that it's easy to be a part of. There's a low barrier of entry. And so as such, there's an incredible community of just, people creating, doing amazing things, inspiring each other and cheering each other on. So if that's calling to you and speaking to you, I'd love to connect with you there. And regardless, just remember that what you're wanting to create with your life, whether it be, just a more stress-free life, or a more beautiful life, right? Or maybe you've got a home remodel project, or you've got, you want to change careers, or go for a job that you've been really after, or advance in your job, or you're trying to create a business, whatever it is, just remember that both your taste and your skill level, they're both important. And that often we just de-emphasize the actual investment in growing our skills, and that you can give yourself that gift of recognizing that your taste is at that level because you could reach that. Your skills could match that, right? I don't believe that you would see that level of taste unless there was something within you that was reaching for that and moving towards that, because it could be a reality. And so, I would argue that that's probably not true for everything in our lives, but the things that your heart is just having a hard time maybe letting go of, or that you've been thinking about and simmering on for years, including your own health, right? If you've been trying to really take care of yourself at a certain level, recognize that that's a skill to grow. It's a skill to learn how to take care of ourselves and our health really well. And that takes time and energy investing in it. And everybody starts at being bad at it or not great at it and making mistakes. And that is part of how we get really good at it. It's not something we can skip. So give yourself the gift of really allowing yourself the opportunity to learn and grow and to be in flow and on fire while doing so, by having the right mindset about it. And just cheering you on wholeheartedly. You got this. And I can't wait to see what you create with your life. Be brave, be inspired, and have an amazing rest of your day.